today, and it feels like a real heavyweight bout is brewing.
Heavyweight for sure.
But we're not talking boxing. We're talking AI.
Right, and it's less about sci-fi fantasies, more about who gets to control the most powerful technology out there.
Exactly. Who's going to control it, and what will they do with it? That's the deep dive we're taking today.
Sounds like a crucial one.
We're digging into this BBC News discussion. Are we sleepwalking into an AI nightmare?
Catchy title.
Right. We've got Gary Marcus. He wrote the book on taming Silicon Valley.
So he knows a thing or two about this.
Definitely. And Perry Olson, author of Supremacy AI. Both in the ring, so to speak. The BBC host starts by putting the spotlight on Demis Hassabis. He's with DeepMind, under the Google umbrella now.
Right, and on the other side of the ring, you've got
Sam Altman, the OpenAI mastermind, recently hitched to Microsoft.
two pretty big names to have in your corner.
It's shaping up to be a classic power struggle, wouldn't you say? And Olson comes out swinging, arguing that big tech, Google, and Microsoft are setting themselves up to be the only real players in the AI game.
And he's basing that on?
Well, he points to some pretty staggering figures. Since ChatGPT hit the scene, the big six tech companies, we're talking a $6 trillion market cap increase.
Trillion with a T. That's a lot of zeros.
It is. And what happens to the smaller AI companies, the researchers trying to keep up?
It's like they're bringing a knife to a gunfight.
That's where Marcus jumps in. He argues that this disparity, it's stifling innovation.
Makes sense. If only a few can afford to play the game.
Right. It becomes less of a race, more of a...
coordination.
Exactly. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Remember all those big promises about AI? Ending poverty, solving climate change, making life easier for everyone.
A utopian vision.
Right, but Marcus, he's throwing some cold water on that. He says right now we're looking at surveillance capitalism 2.0. Instead of selling you a product, these companies, they're in the business of collecting and selling your data on a massive scale.
And he's particularly concerned about OpenAI in this scenario.
He is. He questions whether their financial situation, their business deals, are leading them down a dangerous path.
So potentially we're trading our privacy for these supposed advancements.
That's the question he's raising. And he calls out OpenAI specifically. Their need for massive amounts of data, potentially copyrighted material, and their partnerships, well, let's just say they're raising some eyebrows. It all begs the question.
Is it really progress if we're giving up control over our own information?
And that's a question we should all be asking.
It feels like we're at a fork in the road here. One path leads to big tech calling all the shots, and the other, well, who knows?
And that's where the big question of regulation comes in. Is it the solution or just another hurdle?
The million-dollar question, right?
Big tech's already shouting from the rooftops saying too much regulation, it'll stifle innovation, let China take the lead.
But isn't China already ahead in the AI surveillance game?
That's the irony, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Olson and Marcus, they're pushing back hard. They say the real danger isn't regulation, it's the lack of it.
So what, like a watchdog to keep things in check?
Exactly. Independent oversight, a level playing field. They actually point to the European Union and their AI Act as an example.
Yeah.
It's a bold move, trying to set some ground rules for AI.
Which is a stark contrast to the U.S. approach so far.
Wait and see seems to be the name of the game here. But even with the EU's approach, there's another issue. Stephanie Hare, she's an AI expert. She was part of the BBC discussion. She brings up a really important point. Regulations are only as good as their enforcement.
Meaning?
Well, companies have a history of treating fines as just the cost of doing business.
A slap on the wrist for a multi-billion-dollar company?
Exactly, like a parking ticket when you own the whole parking lot. It's not really a deterrent.
Yeah.
Look at Facebook, that $5 billion fine for privacy violations.
Didn't even make a dent.
Probably made that back before the news cycle moved on. So begs the question, if the powers that be won't rein in big tech, what can we, the average person, actually do?
It's easy to feel helpless.
The BBC host actually asks that very question.
Yeah.
We hear about these big problems, but it feels like, what can one person do?
So did they offer any solutions?
Well, they talked about voting with your feet, supporting companies that align with your values.
Which is tough, because big tech is everywhere.
It's true, but even small choices can make a difference.
Right, like a boycott.
They also talked about collective action, speaking out, supporting organizations, fighting for digital rights, even things like unionization.
Interesting. So strength in numbers.
Exactly. They actually used the example of that legal case against those deepfake websites and the recent success of the Hollywood writers' strike.
Showing that it is possible to fight back.
It takes public pressure, legal challenges, and a refusal to accept the status quo. Which brings us back to the core issue. It's not just about algorithms or data centers.
It's about who gets to control the most powerful technology on the planet.
And how that power shapes our world.
Yeah.
So the big question is, will there be a reckoning for big tech's AI power grab?
Well, history does have a way of repeating itself. Remember MySpace, AOL. Companies that seemed untouchable.
It is kind of reassuring to remember those stories, right?
Yeah, a good reminder that things change quickly, in tech especially. I mean,
For sure. And the experts in this BBC thing, they say we've seen this whole pattern before. Like, industries get too big, too powerful, and then,
people start pushing back.
yeah, regulators,
Yeah.
competitors, the public. I mean, you can't ignore those tides forever.
Like those antitrust lawsuits against Google and Facebook a couple years ago. Those are years in the making.
Public opinion matters
Yeah.
too, right? Like that whole Cambridge Analytica thing. That was huge.
It woke a lot of people up.
Show that even the biggest companies, they can be vulnerable. Which kind of brings us to the big question, right? The future of AI. Is it going to be controlled by a select few, or are we going to see a more balanced approach, a more ethical one maybe?
Well, the BBC hosts, they left us with this thought. The future of AI, it's not set in stone, you know? It's being shaped right now by all of us, every choice we make.
So it's not hopeless.
No, not at all. It's more important than ever to stay informed, stay engaged, keep asking those tough questions.
Don't let the algorithms make all the decisions.
Right, because the future of AI, it's not just about data and algorithms, it's about us. And the more we understand these forces at play, the better we'll be at making sure AI serves humanity.
Not the other way around.
Exactly.
So that wraps up this deep dive into the wild world of AI.
It's a conversation that's just getting started.
It really is. And thank